Why am I not able to hear you?
I can hear you now.
Okay, you can hear me. Hey, good
I
morning, good afternoon, good evening. And hey, what is the question I ask every guest on the show? What does outbound selling mean to you?
oh, it means control. It means ownership. It means opportunity. It means responsibility. It means, when I say control, I mean controlling a little bit of your own destiny. There have been way too many reps just sitting, waiting, palms pressed for the right opportunity to find them and just knock on their door with their wallets open, ready to give them money because they've done 57.934% of their research before they're willing. How long do you want me to carry that trope out, Mark?
Well, I'll tell you what, we could just drop the mic right there, have you back up the audio and play that over and over again, because I'll tell you what, that is exactly what it's all about. You really do control your future. But here's the question then. Why why is it so hard for salespeople to understand that concept?
Oh, uh, they understand the concept. It's that they don't want to believe that
Oh,
concept.
whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, you just stepped on some toes there. They understand the concept, they just don't want to believe because they're
Yeah.
looking for the easy button. Could that be?
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I, I don't mind people looking for an easy button, right? Because if we can make it easier, we can do more of it. We can help more people. We can impact more lives, more businesses. Okay, great. Look for the don't do it hard for the sake of doing it hard if there's an easier way. But just because someone tells you what you want to hear doesn't make it true. And I go back to our friend Larry Levine, who wrote in Selling from the Heart, salespeople have hypnotized themselves into believing that what they don't do doesn't work. I can't put it any better than that. And if someone is telling you that, hey, I'm doing it successfully over here, this is how I'm doing it, you can do this too, you owe that a look. You
Y-
owe that approach, you owe that technique a little bit of investigation. But to just throw everything out the window that we know to have worked for decades is a little bit rash, in my
Yes.
opinion. And
Yes.
how are you going to put yourself in front of strangers? How are you going to introduce yourself, your concepts, your solutions to people who don't know you yet? That is the concept.
Yeah.
And you either do it proactively or you hope and pray and wish. And it's not that people aren't doing it. Inbound. Listen, you and I both get a lot of inbound leads. Let's not pretend. But because your reputation precedes itself, because you've done a lot of really good work, because you've proactively put yourself in front of people one way or another. And I got to get back to basics, got to get back to fundamentals.
I like what you said there so much. And, it's interesting. Adam Lagarde is jumping in here with a comment. Outbound
Oh,
means being
Adam.
the CEO of your own
Yes.
territory by being
Adam,
proactive.
Adam has been in my network for several years and he's one of my favorite people. And he's always got wisdom to bring. He doesn't comment on a lot of posts, but when he does, it's always really meaty. So
And
thank you,
and
Adam, for.
you got to think about that, being the CEO, because again, when you are relying on inbound, you are relying on somebody else.
Mhm.
And again, I think unfortunately over the last 15 years, there's been this real wave of social media that says if you just throw enough stuff out there, people will beat a path to your door because it happened to, Google, or it happened to Uber, or
Right.
hold it. You know what? There's also somebody who wins the lottery too,
Mhm.
but there's millions more who play that never win.
The odds
And
are roughly similar too.
yes, yes. I remember as a kid going fishing, and we didn't have any bait, but we just thought that if we threw the hook in, somehow we would get a fish.
Yeah.
And I think back to those days of going fishing without bait is kind of like what so many salespeople are trying to do today. You got to be willing to prospect. You got to be willing to pick up the phone. But that right there is so difficult because so many salespeople just won't pick up the phone.
And it's the most proactive form of outreach you can take. It requires a lot of vulnerability. You have to be vulnerable with yourself to put yourself out there in a way that you're willing to make 100 calls in a week and have 95 people not pick up. The 5 that pick up, maybe 1 is even in a good mood to talk to you. Do you leave voicemail? Do you not leave voicemail? Should I be doing something different? Should I? And what happens is the doubt, the logic in your brain, the lizard brain, as Seth Godin likes to refer to it, it starts to talk to you and starts to chirp at you and starts to say, yeah, this isn't the way. There's got to be a better way than this. And it starts to erode at your own belief. And that is a very, very dangerous proposition, because the sale begins and ends with belief. You believe you can make the sale the first time. And once you make it, you believe you can make it again. And anything that erodes at your own mindset and belief is toxic and dangerous and needs to be, you need to protect yourself against that. And
Oh,
you can talk yourself into so many things, working or not working. You know who gets the work done? Those who believe in what they do. They believe in why they do it. They have that alignment, and they do the work because they know, not just because it's their job, not just because it's their responsibility, but because that's how they help people.
oh man, I'll tell you what, the chat board is lighting up right now. I can only get a few of these up here on the screen, but Reed says, and if they don't prospect, then don't label them salespeople. Spot on.
Mm,
People who just write orders, who just take orders, that's called customer service. Salespeople are about creating incremental opportunities.
yep.
So spot on. Tim Marvel writes, "Hey, it's the fear of hearing the no. Oh no, people.
Mm.
You know what? I called them twice and they didn't pick up, so they must not be interested. Oh man, how many times have we heard that message?
Yep. And we've heard them, we've heard those prospects say no often enough to know that it's possible. And then all of a sudden we talk ourselves into that. And then we're defeated before we even start. And so it becomes this, well, I think there's a better way. I think there's an easier way. I think I can just put myself out there in a different manner, one that won't reject me so personally, one that won't reject me so immediately, one that's a little more fun, because hey, we all like social media. I actually don't really prefer to hang out on social media, although unless I'm stirring the pot somewhere. But like that's, I just think there are a lot of ways that we can talk ourselves into things, and you have to be careful of that. And you have to be careful of what you're rejecting, stuff that we know will work and we know continues to work. Um,
By
and
the way, you know what we're doing right now? We're stirring the pot, right?
uh,
Because I have a feeling. I mean, okay, the people commenting are the sellers. They're out there prospecting. The people who are not commenting, they're the ones who are afraid to pick up the phone.
yeah,
Patrick Tinney writes, nobody can live your brand the way you do. So just pick up the phone. The phone is not a rattlesnake. Yes, it is amazing how many people don't realize that they can actually make phone calls. And it's this. And I'm going to go back to something you said earlier about Seth Godin and the
mhm,
whole lizard brain.
mhm,
Because if we can't sell ourselves, I mean, we are our own biggest problem. We are our own. And if we can't sell ourselves in terms of saying why we need to call, and of course, the whole reason I believe in outbound selling is because if I have the ability to help someone, it's my obligation to reach. I recently signed a major contract, probably one of the biggest contracts. In fact, it could easily wind up being the largest contract I ever signed. And it
cheers
was
to you.
because, because I met an individual, saw an opportunity, and I reached out to him and began courting. And because I knew I could help them, And if I had not been aggressive in reaching out and making those calls, it never would have come to fruition.
You know what's really interesting too, when we talk about social media and the thing that worked for that one person, and there's the old saying that if you give 1,000 monkeys 1,000 typewriters, you'll eventually come up with the collective works of Shakespeare, right? Like, but that doesn't mean that you would pay a monkey to sit down behind a typewriter and write. Um, what you notice now is the people who are really effective with social media in terms of using it to generate inbound leads is they do a lot of outbound on social media. They're proactively putting their content, if they're using content to market, they're proactively putting their content in front of people, because that is one of the only ways to make it stand out now, because everybody's doing this. Well, I'm going to post every day and I'm going to share this and I'm going to take someone else's work. I'm going to take Mark's article. I'm going to put it in front of my audience. I'm going to do all this stuff. There's so much noise out there. One of the most effective ways to be the signal among the noise is to proactively reach out to your connections, to your prospects, to people who you just want to connect with, and put your ideas in front of them. That sounds a lot like outbound prospecting. I'm not trying to stir the pot so much as what I'm trying to just bring to everybody's attention that they already know to be true, but continue to deny. What are we trying to do here, folks? We have a job. You got to put yourself in front of people who you believe you can help, who may not know that you can help them. If you do it on social media, cool. I still call it outbound. You do it via email, I still call it outbound. You do it via phone, I certainly will call that outbound. Why do we argue about the minutia at the expense of missing the bigger picture? Mark, that's my question for you. I know it's your podcast. It's like one of 19 that you host right now, but like what why do we continue to miss the bigger picture because we're too busy about, well, should I email or should I call? Why don't you just do both?
Do both. Thank you. Thank you. You win the prize. Stop by the lobby on the way out and pick up the prize picked exclusively for you. Thank you for playing, Jeff Bajorek. That's so spot on, because I was hoping you were going to say that, because I have seen too many people that I say, well, if I just do enough outbound messaging, I mean, how many stupid outbound, how many in messages do you get by way of LinkedIn?
Plenty.
Asking you for when they haven't done any homework at all. Here's the whole thing. Your outbound prospecting campaign has to include every medium out there, because you don't know how that prospect's going to respond. But I'll tell you what, I see too many people, what they do is they just stick with one. Well, if I just email enough people, oh yeah, that'll work. Yeah.
Do you realize how many people enough people is?
Oh yeah. And that enough gets bigger and bigger every day. And then of course they repeat the email by saying, I just want to bounce this to the top of your email, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, we talked about this, and you mentioned this earlier, and I just kind of went in a different direction. So I apologize for this, but you said the people who call twice and then give up. Okay. Well, the same people who call twice and give up don't realize that you need to call somewhere between 12 to 17 times before you can realistically say you gave it your all. Those are the same people who are reaching out to 100 prospects when they should be reaching out to 1,000 with that same approach. Now, I don't want to spray and pray. I don't want to be blasting everybody, and because that's spamming people, because I don't like that. So I want to keep my number of targets tighter. I agree. That's a really good plan. But if you're going to do that, you need to still increase the amount of times you reach out to those people. Many to one is greater than one to many, because you have to have that consistency. You have to have a plan. You have to, you can't just make prospecting an improvisational exercise every time you get to your little block. You have to put some thought into this and recognize the job that needs to be done, the magnitude of the job that needs to be done. Or you can spray and pray, make it a numbers game. I promise, if you send enough emails, you will get enough prospects. That I will agree with. I will disagree with you about how many prospects or how many emails you need to be sending.
That's the whole, and at the end of the day, it's how do I create the shortest path possible? Now,
yes,
let's back this thing up a little bit, because you said number 12 to 17.
Yeah.
You got to reach out to somebody 12 to 17. Mm-hmm. I'm going to share with you this situation. I won't reveal any names or anything, but working with an account exec who has a proposal into absolute one of the biggest companies, potential customers they would ever have if they landed this contract. And I said, great. I said, terrific. Who is your contact there? Oh, it's so-and-so in procurement. I said, excuse me. I said, procurement. Who is procurement taking their orders from? Well, they just have to decide who to. No. They don't buy things on the whim. They buy things for somebody.
Right.
But he's told me, don't reach out to anybody else. I got this. We'll get. And I said, you will never, ever get that deal, because you haven't done the work to earn the right to have that contract. And I said, you got to identify 10 to 15 other potential people in that organization right now. But I don't want to bug them. I don't want to bug them. Excuse me.
Oh,
please,
Mark,
you're killing me.
It's a good thing they're working with you, Mark. because you're going to change that person's eye level right now.
Well, I'm either going to change that person's eye level or they're going to get fired. I'm going to be very blunt on that one.
One of the most commonly forgotten concepts, truths, it's not even a concept, it's a truth, is that people buy things emotionally and they justify those purchases logically after the fact. Procurement leads with logic and is the most unemotional department in the entire company. They are trained professionally to be that way. The bigger the company, the better they are at remaining unemotional, which means that you have zero leverage. You have negative leverage in that system and in that process. So whatever that rep forecasted that deal for, take 20 to 25% off it right away, because that's what procurement is going to take right out of you off the top if you're lucky. Unless you have some leverage in those 10 to 15 people in the other part of the organization who can become emotionally involved in the solution that you are providing, who can go to procurement and say, if you beat this person up too much, they'll walk. And then we will be worse off for not having them. Be careful. That is the only leverage you have in that situation. And of course, procurement's going to say, no. You don't need to talk to anybody else. We don't need any of that emotion getting involved here. We don't need people who actually want and need this product to be involved in this conversation at all. Why don't we just keep this between you and me? And before our next conversation, you should sharpen your pencil twice.
Yeah. Jeff, I'm really pleased that you don't get wound up on this whole subject of outbound. And
I'm sorry, Mark.
No, but I'll tell you what, though, this is fundamentally, salespeople have to be passionate about what they do.
You do.
Because here's the thing. I see so many salespeople who struggle with outbound prospecting, making the calls and emails, because they make it a rote activity. Now, I get it. It's an activity. I get it. You got to have your number. You got to have all that. But if you're not passionately in the game about you are going to find success, you are literally out of the game to begin with.
And so many reps, it's hard to get that passion because they don't have clarity. And that's one of the things that I work with people on so much. And as I've talked to my customers and the testimonials and things I get, they all come back with a couple of common denominators. But the most consistent one, there's the word I'm looking for, is, Jeff, you take complicated things and you make them simple. And that helps my team understand with clarity what they need to do. And that enables them to go and do it. Right? The trope that salespeople are lazy and salespeople are stupid, so let's just train them and kick them in the butt to go do the work. Those are falsehoods. Salespeople are really smart. Salespeople sometimes are too smart for their own good. They talk themselves into, well, how can I make this better? I'm too smart to not be succeeding at this. And they're certainly not lazy because they know what is required of them. But when you don't have clarity about how you help, it's really tough to be passionate about who you help. And without that passion, without that belief, you're sunk. And that's that's that common denominator to just about every failing sales team out there right now, Mark, is they don't have clarity. And I know that's what you help people with. That's what the Outbound Conference is designed to help people with. That's how my practice helps people. It's just really understanding with crystal clarity. It doesn't have to be that complicated. If you don't wind yourself up and get wrapped around your own axle and get in your own way, you can actually do this quite effectively. You can get a lot of fulfillment out of it. You can do it with a level of personality, authenticity, and personalization that makes you feel good about the people you're helping and how you do so. It hurts my feelings that people have not seen that light, because my life has changed for the better in every aspect. Because when I recognized what selling was really all about, it changed the way I interacted with every person that I've ever run into contact with. And I know you say that too. Selling's a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's not even a career. It's a lifestyle. And that clarity, I think, is the key to all of that.
So much of what you said there. And you did bring up the word Outbound Conference. We got to wrap the show up here in just a minute. Outbound Conference, you're at it again this year, right?
Yep.
Right?
Sure am.
I tell you what, first time we met was 3 or 4 years ago at Outbound. We've become great friends since. You speak every year now at it, and it is absolutely the best. Why do you think it's the best conference out there for salespeople?
Well, the content's unparalleled. And like, let me remove myself and my virtual presentation early in the week and my leadership presentation at the end of the week. Like, you just look at the middle section there, and you've got the best content available from some of the most profound authors, speakers, writers, thought leaders in the space. Um, wear comfortable shoes. I mean, like, and hold on to your hats. I mean, there's a lot that's going to come at you. Bring an extra notebook, but the content's there. I think Anthony says it best. Typically when he opens, the address, he's like, everybody that's here wants to be here, and that there's an intangible impact that has on the energy level in
Yeah.
the room.
Yeah.
And wear comfortable shoes, but you will sleep well at night because you're constantly stimulated, invigorated, and inspired.
Yeah.
When I,
Because, yeah.
I mean, we met, I think the first time it was 2018. No, it was 2019. And, I remember, I mean, really wanting to be invited to speak, and I was thrilled when I was invited. But I knew that this was going to be on my calendar every year, regardless of whether I was participating, because I needed to be in that room.
Well, and we wanted to get you there as a speaker, as presenter, because of your message and your content. Hey, Outbound Conference coming up in September of this year. You've got to check it out. It's September 21st through the 23rd, live at the Georgia World Congress Center. Go to outboundconference.com. It is the only conference geared around outbound selling. And as we like to say, it's prospecting, pipeline, and productivity. My guest today has been Jeff Bajorek. Jeff, thank you for being on the show. You're absolutely fantastic. It is great. And hey, quick side note for you, Jeff. How do people get in touch with you besides seeing you at Outbound Conference?
Well, the best way to get in touch with me, I mean, you just through my website, jeffbajorek.com, connect with me on LinkedIn, really interacting with a lot of people there. And, you can listen to my podcast. If you're listening to this on podcast right now, then just go over your player, go to Rethink the Way You Sell. And after you subscribe to this one, go check that out there. I'm doing a lot of I'm doing a lot of work that I'm proud of on that show. So there's three ways.
You do some great stuff. I'll tell you what, you're a great friend of the industry. You're a great friend of mine. I enjoy always hanging out with you. We got to wrap the show up. Outbound Conference, September 22. You need to be there. Go to outboundconference.com. I'm Mark Hunter, the sales hunter. Proud to be one of the founders of Outbound. Jeff Bajorek will be there. We'll see you too at Outbound Conference. Great selling.